All right, so you know the basics of Angular, right? You can answer the standard interview questions, and that's awesome. But here's the thing. Real interviews, the ones for senior roles, they don't just scratch the surface. They dig deep. So in this explainer, we're going to get into those next level questions, the ones that really show the difference between someone who just knows Angular and someone who truly gets it. Ready? Let's get you prepared for those tougher questions. So here's the game plan, our little level up journey. We'll start by going beyond the basics. Then we're diving into mastering change detection, handling async data, and looking at some advanced building blocks. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about the senior developer mindset. Let's do it. Right, first things first, we're moving past the textbook answers. Look, anyone can cram a definition and spit it back out, but that's not what senior level thinking is about. It's about understanding the why. Why does it work this way? What are the trade-offs? That's the stuff interviewers are really listening for. And that's our focus today. Okay, let's kick things off with a big one, mastering change detection. You know, to a lot of developers, Angular's change detection feels like, well, like magic. Things just update on the screen. But a senior dev, they know exactly how the magic trick works. They've looked behind the curtain. All right, so you're in the interview and they hit you with this classic. So, what is Zone.js in Angular? Now, this is one of those questions where the gap between a decent answer and a great answer is absolutely massive. Okay, let's look at the difference here. The normal answer, Zone.js tells Angular a change happened, isn't wrong, but it's kind of vague, right? Now look at the experienced answer. It's so much more precise. It tells you how it works by intercepting async operations. You know, things like mouse clicks, set timeout, API calls. And it tells you what it does next. It pokes Angular and tells it to run change detection. That detail is everything. Here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine Zone.js is like a super attentive assistant. Anytime one of those async tasks finishes, like your data from an API call finally arrives, Zone.js runs over to Angular and says, "Hey boss, something just changed. Time to update the UI." That's it. It's the little messenger that makes everything feel so automatic and seamless. And here comes the follow-up question, the one that separates the pros from the apprentices. Can Angular actually work without Zone.js? This is where we move from just knowing the definition to understanding practical performance, which is always on a senior dev's mind. Again, just look at the contrast. The maybe, no answer, that screams uncertainty, but the experienced answer is confident and clear. Yes, absolutely, you can run it in zoneless mode, but, and this is the crucial part, it also explains the trade-off. You get more control over performance, which can be a huge win, but you lose that automatic magic. Now the responsibility is on you to tell Angular exactly when to check for changes. Okay, so we've nailed down how Angular knows when to update. Now let's talk about the data itself, especially data that doesn't show up right away. We're talking asynchronous data patterns. Modern apps are swimming in data streams, and a senior dev knows exactly which stroke to use to navigate them. Let's start with the big one, promise versus observable. Think of a promise like ordering a pizza. You place the order, and eventually you get one pizza. It's a single value, and you can't really cancel it once the chef starts making it. An observable, that's like a subscription to a newspaper. You can get a new issue every single day, multiple values over time. And the best part, you can cancel your subscription whenever you feel like it. Way more flexible. So you've got this stream of data from an observable. How do you actually use it in your template? Well, you've got two main options. The async pipe is 9 times out of 10 your best friend. Why? Because it's smart. It subscribes for you, and more importantly, it automatically unsubscribes when the component is destroyed. No memory leaks. It's just cleaner and safer. You really should only use a manual .subscribe when you absolutely need to do something else with the data, a side effect, like navigating to another page. But if you do that, please remember to clean up after yourself and unsubscribe manually. All right, time to dig into the Senior Developer's Toolkit. Angular gives us all these incredible advanced building blocks. The mark of a true pro is knowing which tool to pull out for which job and why. Okay, here's a great one. What's the difference between pure and impure pipes? This isn't just trivia. The answer directly impacts how fast your app runs. The difference is actually pretty simple, but it's so important. A pure pipe is smart and, frankly, a little lazy in a good way. It only does work when the input it's given actually changes. An impure pipe, on the other hand, is a workaholic. It runs on every single change detection cycle, no matter what. You can see how that could get out of hand, right? Using impure pipes when you don't need to can seriously slow your application down. This next one really gets to the core of how Angular is built. What's the deal with directives and components? They're related for sure, but they're not the same thing. Nailing this difference is key. Let's make this super simple. Think of it like a recipe. You start with a directive. What's a directive? It's just behavior. It adds functionality to something on the screen. Now take that directive and add one magic ingredient. A template, some HTML. Boom, you now have a component. So a component is basically just a directive that also has its own look and feel. And speaking of components, the way we think about them and build them has totally changed in recent years. This leads us to one of the biggest and best updates to the framework, standalone components. What's the big deal with standalone components? In one word, simplicity. For years, we had ng modules, and honestly, they could be a real headache. Lots of boilerplate code, confusing dependencies, it was just complex. Standalone components get rid of all that. They let you build things in a much cleaner, more direct way. Lazy loading becomes a breeze. It's just better. This is absolutely the direction Angular is headed. Okay, this next question is a big one because it's about safety, security, and making sure your app can run anywhere. The question is, how should you really be interacting with the DOM in Angular? There is one golden rule here, and it's simple. Don't touch the DOM directly. Seriously. Instead, you always go through Angular Security Guard, which is called Renderer2. Think of it as a safe layer between your code and the web page. It protects your app from security vulnerabilities, and it's also what allows your Angular app to run in different environments, not just a browser. It's a non-negotiable best practice. All right, we've talked about a lot of technical stuff, change detection, data patterns, all these cool tools. But becoming a senior developer, it's more than just memorizing a list of facts. It's really about the mindset. It's a whole different way of approaching problems. When you boil it all down, what do all of these experienced answers have in common? It's clarity. A senior dev doesn't just know more stuff. They have a deep understanding of this system. They see the pros and cons, the trade-offs of every decision, and maybe the most important skill of all, they can take a super complex topic and explain it in a way that just makes sense. That's the real sign you're operating at a senior level. Look, getting a handle on these concepts is what will set you apart, not just in an interview, but in your day-to-day work. It's the difference between knowing what to type and understanding why you're typing it. So after all this, the only question left is, are you ready for that next round?